What's up, everybody? Dan here at Dan and Sarah Makers, and we are coming back at you with another Tool Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. So this week we are going to look at the DeWalt brushless 20 volt max 21 degree round head framing nailer. This is a cordless battery powered nailer, and it's one of the first couple out there that have a feature that actually made me want to look at getting a cordless nailer. Way back when, in the 90s, when I first started in construction, Passload had their impulse nailer, which is basically like a propane butane compressed gas cartridge with almost like a Makita 9.6 volt or 7.2 volt, I forget what it was, stick type battery. So it was basically an electrically ignited single cylinder engine. So I remember we kind of joked about them. We called them Passload nail starters because they were kind of notorious in those days to partially drive a nail. So every time you'd pull the trigger and you'd fire it, you'd have that exhaust fan going, exhausting out the gas, the combustion gas out of the cylinder. So that was a really cool nail gun, but when I was in California doing framing, they only accepted or used clipped head nails, which, if you're familiar with the difference between a clipped head and a full round head or plastic collated nail, there are nails where with the paper collated clipped head, they basically cut half the nail head off, so they're kind of like a partial circle with a flat, and you could actually take the shank of the nails and they would touch all the way down. You get a lot more nails in each strip, and they'd use strips of paper, like heavy paper, and glue it on there to collate these nail strips. California and a lot of places with seismic issues, those are not code approved for structural framing. We could use them for pickup work, blocking, miscellaneous little stuff, but as far as structural framing, you could not use a clipped head nail. Codes may vary from where you are, but where we were on the West Coast, we couldn't use clipped head nails. So that was pretty much the only option for quite a while. Then I think Makita came out with their style, which I think there's a really, really good chance that Passload makes those because they look almost identical. So it's only been in the last couple years that companies have come out with cordless full round head framing nailers. DeWalt came in, I think Hitachi, which is now Metabo HPT, Hitachi Power Tool. That'll take a while to get used to. Hitachi came out with the first good one. I always wanted to get one. Every time I went to the store to get one, they were out, and then it swapped over, and I haven't seen them on the shelf recently, so I'll have to order one sometime. The Hitachi uses a gas cylinder that basically is squeezed and compressed, and then when you pull the trigger, it releases and drives the nail that way. The DeWalt has a different system. It has a flywheel system, so it basically has a weighted wheel that begins to spin really fast, and it's got gear teeth on it as far as I understand. I haven't taken this apart. And then the drive pin basically has a geared track, and so when you pull the trigger, the flywheel starts, that track engages, it pulls back, and when it gets up to the top of its path, it releases, and then it spring-loaded pushes back down and drives the nail. So you've got this kind of a flywheel effect that's going all the time. So this does not fire the instant you pull the trigger. It fires once that drive shaft is compressed, pushed back all the way, and then it disengages and comes forward. So not quite as responsive from what I've heard as a Hitachi or Metabo, but it does pretty much the same thing. So some of the features on this. It is a full round head nail, plastic strip collated. It's 21 degrees, so it's going to take all your standard Hitachi style nail strips like the NR83 series. So you have really good interoperability or intercompatibility between your nails. So you get one case of nails, works for your corded or air pneumatic nail guns and your battery powered ones. As far as the magazine, you pull it back and it locks to the rear as soon as you get to the rear. Once you load a strip of nails in, these are the thicker, I forget the diameter off the top of my head, it's like 0.131, I think, or 0.148, sorry. 0.148 diameter, and these are 3¼ inch. You drop it in the top, and then to release the magazine follower, you just pull it back, it disengages. So it's the same, pull it back, it engages, pull it back, it disengages. So it's kind of a cycle that way. So one thing that it does do that I've noticed is that it doesn't catch that last nail. It's got kind of a catch that's supposed to go over the last nail, but it tends not to. When it drops forward, it goes under the nail. So that's something to be concerned, or at least aware of. So if it jams the nails in the magazine, it very well could be that that follower's underneath the last nail head. It has a depth of drive adjustment, this big yellow screw. That's nice. Easy to access on the nose. It's got some up-down directions. This is supposed to be a jam clearing device. I haven't used it yet, so I don't know if that is beneficial or not. The nose jaw, I guess, or foot, it's not really aggressive. It's rather lackluster in my opinion. So as far as toenailing, you can't jam it into the side of a stud and have it grip. It'll tend to slide, or else you have to go to really more of a low angle, not at such a steep angle. It does come with a plastic nose bushing for if you're going to do siding or something like that and you don't want to mar up the surface. It does have a nail hook, or a joist hook, that rotates from the left side to the right side, which is cool. It's got on the back side here, inside the handle, it's got a single shot nail selector switch, and it's got a sequential nail so you can bump fire. And then it's also got a power setting, so you can go to a 1, which is the low power, and then when you want to drive those nails, you go to 2, which is high power. The funny thing is, though, that the instructions recommend that any nail over like 2 inches, you should use the high power setting. What size nails do we always use in framing? We use 2 3/8 as an 8-penny nail, which is about the minimum, and then we go up from there. So you're pretty much always going to be use that 2 setting. So it's kind of like, why would you even have a selection switch unless it's just like a, hey, cool, we got a selection switch that gives you power. There is a lock button here that you slide back and forth to lock out the trigger and then activate the trigger. So anyways, we will throw the battery on. This one came with a 6 amp hour 20 volt battery, the flex volt style. It will use the larger ones, they just get bulky, and I assume it'll use the smaller ones. So that's the battery slapped in. We've got it on unlock. I'll pull the trigger, you'll hear the flywheel start up. So every time you pull that trigger, inadvertently, that flywheel will start up. So that's, I don't know, it's not the greatest in my opinion. So we'll fire some nails. I've got some older kind of dry 4x4s. I've used this in quite a few videos. I've got drywall screws, nails, all kinds of stuff. So we'll drive some nails into here. And then we've also got this really hard 4x4, this dunnage piece that we used in that Makita video. So we will drive some nails into here and see how we go. Is this a nail starter, or is it just a awesome addition to your tool set? So we'll zoom in and drive some nails. All right, so we fired some 16 and 8 penny nails, as it were, into both a hard piece of dunnage and then an old 4x4. I think this nail gun kind of dodged a bullet on film, just because I went through the whole thing one time and had a huge number of jams, had to use the unjamming lever at the front. There's a little light that flashes when the drive pin gets jammed forward. It was like every nail was doing it, and we had a lot of nails that were only partially driven. The best I can tell is that some plastic collating kind of jammed along the side here, in between basically the nose guide that the drive pin slides behind, and that may have been jamming it up. I don't know, but I'm like, okay, this is great. This is a bunch of interesting footage of the nail gun jamming up and not driving nails very well. Went to the camera, it wasn't recording. So I redid it. I had cleared that little piece of plastic collation. Seems to have worked a little bit better. When you fire it fast, especially with the larger 3 1/4 inch .148 nails, which are the big ones, it doesn't sink them all the way, so it is a little bit of a nail starter. What's on camera is a little better than what I got the first round, which didn't get recorded. As far as the 8 penny nails, it can definitely overdrive them. The one thing that I don't still like about this nail gun is there's that delay in between each nail. You can't sequentially fire very fast. I'm used to using an NR83 series nail gun and nailing off sheeting just when you're doing like a 3 and 6 shear panel where you just are firing nails like crazy. I'm used to that kind of sequential response. This gun definitely doesn't have it. If you're going to do blocking, or you're doing, you're framing by yourself and you're going to roll a stud and fire a couple nails and then move on to the next stud, maybe for framing that way it would be okay. But as far as sheeting, nailing off sheeting, roof sheeting, wall sheeting, shear panels, stuff like that, definitely not going to be as responsive as a regular pneumatic nail gun. That being said, if you're working by yourself and you don't want to get an air hose out, you don't want to get a compressor out, you're at a remote site where air or a gas compressor or something like that isn't convenient or readily available or financially feasible if you're building your own place, this would be a lot less expensive than getting a pneumatic gun, an air hose, a gas compressor, or an electric compressor. So I definitely think it's got its place, but it's just a little lacking for really hardcore fast production framing. That being said, there's another guy on YouTube, the Crazy Framer, and he is one of our friends to the north. He's a Canadian carpenter, and he does a lot of house framing videos. He works by himself quite a bit, but he was working in some very, very cold temperatures this last winter, and he had one of these DeWalt cordless guns, and it would freeze up. The batteries would freeze up to the extent of not being able to work, and I don't know, maybe the gears or something inside were too cold, so he had to use his pass load impulse nailer for that. But his DeWalt framing cordless circular saw was working in those temperatures. So maybe temperature is an issue. I haven't had a chance to use this in really cold weather yet. I know just this last week, the other house, I looked at the weather report and it was 12 degrees one morning. So into October, it was down to 12. So Fahrenheit. So a little bit negative something for those of you who use Celsius. So anyways, yeah, it's not a complete waste in my opinion, but it does have its limitations. So I definitely will be using it, just not in some situations. So anyways, this is Dan with Dan and Sarah Makers. We appreciate all of you that like, comment, subscribe, and share. So please keep doing that if you haven't already. And go ahead and do it. And until next time, we hope these inspire you to get out there and do something.